They also work when others stay at home.
Sometimes you catch a lot, sometimes you don't. That's the North Sea.
Badass jobs on the high seas,
Looks good.
in dizzy heights,
If you fall down here, you won't survive.
Everything okay?
No step unsecured.
or in narrow shafts.
Keeps you young and fit. Slowly down, please.
Norddeich on the East Frisian North Sea coast. Shrimper Jörg Frerich readies the nets.
Well, let's see if we can get some crabs. Golden crabs.
Golden Krabben.
Carsten Norman steers the shrimp boat. Today the two start quite comfortably at 9 o'clock. The day doesn't always start this relaxed.
Early in the morning or at night or in the evening, it varies a lot, depending on where we want to go fishing. Because you have to work with the tide.
Monday morning. Over the weekend, Jörg and Carsten stayed ashore. Time to check the nets. The boys are ready to go. The preparations are completed in no time. The 17-meter cutter is ready to sail. The two fishermen have known each other for years and are a perfectly coordinated team. And off they go. The weather conditions are excellent today. The fishermen hope for a good catch. While Carsten casts off, Jörg keeps his eyes open.
Yesterday was too windy. We actually wanted to leave yesterday too, but we have to pay attention now. We're always stuck on the pole. I'm looking at the pole right now. We've been stuck up there before. We've already torn everything loose up there, and we don't want that. Stakes are expensive. They cost €1,000.
The amount the two crabbers catch differs all the time. Carsten and Jörg have been working together for 8 years now and know their Wadden Sea like the back of their hand.
You have a gut feeling and know roughly where to go. You have experience and know where it worked well in the previous years. And you look at the wind and weather, the current, and if everything fits, you might have a good catch again.
It takes about an hour for the fishermen to reach their fishing spot. While Carsten steers the cutter, Jörg takes care of the catering. Of course, there is no coffee on board the genuine East Frisians.
There's delicious East Frisian tea. Tastes quite good at sea. Gives you hair on your chest. It tastes better than at home. The water's different here on the ship.
Das Wasser ist hier bei uns auf dem Schiff anders.
Carsten?
Another breath before the hard part of the work begins.
Oh, yummy. That tastes good.
Rising diesel prices and less profit. COVID has also been hard on the fishermen. In addition, crabbers stay at sea longer than in the past. Although the job is arduous, to be a crabber is Jörg's dream job. His father and grandfather already caught crabs, and his brother is also a fisherman.
I have never regretted anything. I have a lot of fun. You have your freedom and can do what you want. There's no better life.
Jörg and Carsten fish with so-called bottom trawl nets. They are attached to approximately 10-meter-long booms and are towed across the seabed. The so-called beam trawls keep the nets open. Carsten's great-great-grandfather was the first fisherman to go crabbing from Norddeich by engine.
I grew up with fishing. Even as a child at home, we talked about fishing. And even when I was with Grandpa, They always talked about fishing. That's actually almost always the talk of the day at home. And there was never the question of what I do, really. I was born into it.
Eigentlich stellte sich fast gar nicht die Frage, was man so macht, ne? Das wurde man mit reingeboren, ne?
Meanwhile, Jörg struggles with the unruly outrigger. It has jammed. The crabber has to be a little more aggressive. A common problem that doesn't faze Jörg.
Now it works well again. The block is underneath the flat irons here, so it doesn't get stuck.
An der Seite und dann hängt das sich fest.
Now it's time for the crab fishermen to wait. Will they catch enough today? From the rugged North Sea coast to Hamburg's Speckgürtel. In Norderstedt, mobile communications technician Jürgen Böhme takes care of a fault on a cell tower, together with the network operator.
For me, it all looks...
It looks good to you, right? But that would mean we're basically looking at the greater range again, now at the 2 degrees. You have no alarms, but the disruptor is still there. We see it, so we're going to take that to the Federal Network Agency now.
Jürgen Böhme, tell complete. Hello? What's it about? What does the fault ticket say? So that means radio failure or power problem. Is it a must? It is? Okay. Then I'll need climbing assistance. Do we have someone nearby, a colleague? Andreas? Okay, all right. Then send me the ticket, and I'll look in there to see if the spare part number is in it.
What do we have? Outage radio relay?
Yes, radio failure at the glassworks. We have to stop here now.
We'll talk. Bye-bye.
Another cell tower in Norderstedt is completely down. Such a malfunction comes first. Jürgen must not dawdle in the event of a complete outage.
This means that no one in this area can make phone calls with their mobiles. Everything is completely down now, and we have to repair it as quickly as possible, because not even emergency calls are possible at this location.
In diesem Bereich über diesen Standort können jetzt auch keine Notrufe abgesetzt werden.
Jürgen sets off immediately. After all, the other mast is only 8 kilometers away. On the way, the field service technician orders a suitable spare part from the warehouse and requests support. Because with this mast, the technicians may have to climb, and that can only be done in pairs.
Let's see what's going on. Location is completely down. ODU or EF cable or power.
Let's check whether there's electricity at all.
I'll register us at the site.
Ja, okay. Ich melde uns am Standort an.
Gut. Ich schließe schon mal auf.
Colleague Andreas Arnold is supporting Jürgen today.
So. Also Strom ist
We
schon
do have electricity.
Strom ist da?
Ja.
If the technicians are lucky, they can fix the problem from below. If not, they will have to climb up. In that case, it would be better if the weather plays along.
Here's the problem.
Genau.
If it's raining now, it's stupid to work because, of course, our antenna cables can get wet. We'd need to take safety measures. A thunderstorm would be even worse because it's very dangerous. Lightning could strike. In that case, we'd leave despite failure because self-protection and life comes first.
Andreas and Jürgen go troubleshooting. They use a diagnostic tool on the laptop. The experienced service technicians suspect the outdoor unit, or ODU for short. The high-frequency unit is on top of the mast and communicates with the indoor unit.
Andy, look, nothing.
The ODU has no connect at all. It doesn't recognize it at all. Look, it's blue and no connect.
Nochmal, die ist blau und kein Connect.
It's dead.
We have to climb up.
The ODU must be replaced completely. After just under 2 hours, the courier from Hamburg arrives with the spare part.
Bodo.
Hello, Bodo. Bodo, was the ride okay?
Yes, fine.
Do you have a pen? I'll take those out.
For you, I always have a pen.
Oh, das ist ein Traum.
A dream. So, the spare part. I'll bring it in. Get home safely. Take care. Thank you.
Will do.
Was it jammed before the Elbe tunnel?
No, as usual.
Eins klar.
All right, see you next time.
Ja, ne? Bis zum nächsten Mal.
Take care.
Bye.
Komm gut heim. Mach's gut.
This means that they can go on with the repair.
Okay.
That's the ODU, and that's also the correct part number. Wonderful.
Richtige Artikelnummer.
You always have to check that again. Make sure the right assembly is in the box. We've had that before.
In dem Karton ist, weil das gab's auch schon mal.
The radio mast is 42.2 meters high. The weather is still okay, but the sky is getting darker. If the weather gets any worse, the field service technicians will have to abandon their job.
I hope it doesn't rain.
I also hope it stays dry.
Even if only Andreas climbs, Jürgen still has to get fully dressed. This way, he would be ready right away to rescue his colleague in an emergency.
You develop a routine over time, but that shouldn't mean you become careless in any way.
Because despite safety equipment, the job remains dangerous. In the worst case, there is a risk of suspension trauma, a life-threatening state of shock.
The leg loops should not be too tight. A hand should always fit in between. Because in the event of a fall, of course, everything pulls here, and that's then very uncomfortable. It's also unpleasant when working. Now Jürgen has to check again whether everything fits.
Ja, muss man sehen.
Let me see. Show the back.
I have the impression that the plate...
It doesn't sit right.
Exactly, a little further to the middle.
The plate.
Genau.
Now it sits properly.
So sieht das schon anders aus.
Dämpfer ist dran.
Turn around.
Good. Let me check yours.
The technicians climb rail-bound. Andreas later connects to the rail in the mast via the so-called runner. In the event of a fall, the runner locks and prevents the climber from falling. To avoid having to climb up and down several times, Andreas takes everything that he might need for his work on the mast.
You report from above when we can do antenna measurement.
I'll call you then.
Genau.
Such a bag can weigh up to 15 kilos, 5 kilos just for the tool, plus the spare part. Then it's time to go. Andreas gets ready for the ascent.
I'll call you as soon as I'm up and start working.
Und anfangen zu arbeiten. Ja.
Okay, alles klar.
Okay, I'll go in so we can continue to connect.
40 meters upwards for Andreas. Hopefully the weather holds. Dachau, near Munich. Klaus Pauker and Mladen Tokic have the order to rebuild an elevator. Routine, actually. Klaus Pauker doesn't expect easy going, however. The elevator installers remain cautious.
You just have to be careful that you don't hurt yourself. The difficult thing is that there is little space and it's tight to remove and install. But otherwise it should work.
Particularly tricky, the fitters have to climb into the shaft, under the cage. If you're claustrophobic, you'd better look for another job. The two still have a relatively large amount of space, but it doesn't stop there. The fitters have to get to the guide shoes, which are mounted under the cage.
We still have to drive down a bit, don't we?
In order to be able to work properly, the service technicians must first lower the elevator a little further. Mladen does that from the outside.
Caution.
Only very slowly and carefully does Mladen lower the elevator a little. After all, he doesn't want to hurt his colleague.
This should do.
Now the elevator is in the right position for Klaus and Mladen to do their job. Elevators are considered the safest means of transportation in the world. Nevertheless, accidents cannot be ruled out. In 2021, for example, an elevator installer in North Rhine-Westphalia was crushed by the elevator car. The two fitters set up safety supports. After all, above their heads is the 1,100-kilo elevator. Without safety measures, it would mean their certain death should the elevator fall above them.
This is our safety room. If something goes wrong, nothing can happen to us here.
In the elevator, the guide rails on which the elevator travels are to be replaced with rollers. As a result, the elevator is to run smoothly, unlike in the past. First, Klaus and Mladen have to remove the old skid shoes as safely as possible.
I take away the guide shoe, so I have now spread the jack in the back so that it stays in the same position. And the new one that we put in will be placed in the same position, so that the cage doesn't tilt backwards to the wall, because the cage is backpack suspended. This is also a safety feature for us, because if we remove the console and don't spread it, we can get crushed. The cage can spread our fingers against the rails.
Elevator mechanic is not a recognized apprenticeship. Mladen and Klaus are career changers. Mladen learned to be an electrician. A friend showed him the elevator business. The work is only possible as a team.
This is the old part we're expanding.
So far, they're making good progress. The fitters can install the first rollers. The elevator is backpack guided. This means that the car is attached to two guide rails like a backpack. The guide rails are on one side in this type of elevator. Klaus and Mladen have to replace a total of 4 skid shoes, 2 under and 2 above the cage. Entry and exit are anything but simple.
You stay young and fit.
In addition to manual skills, elevator installers need a lot of knowledge in electrical engineering, machine or facility technology.
You have a lot of responsibility, because if you don't do it properly, you can cause personal injury. If someone is injured or locked up for hours, it's your responsibility.
The elevator fitters need just under 70 minutes. Then both sliding shoes under the cage are replaced by rollers. Time for a test drive. Now it's time to find out whether Mladen and Klaus did a good job.
Do you want me to drive up?
Down.
Down, okay. Caution.
From mountainous Bavaria back to the rough North Sea. Shrimper Jörg is cleaning up on board because the sorting plant was shut down over the weekend. The fishermen have been trawling for almost 2 hours. The two hope for lots of fresh crabs. Often they also fish garbage out of the sea, or even worse.
It looked like one of those measuring buoys that went down, like a yellow measuring buoy. And then we disposed of it in Noorddijk. The crane picked it up and then put it on the building yard, on the square. And then someone with a bike drove by and he knew what he was doing. And he said, "Do you even know what is lying there?" "No." And then he said, "There's an anchor mine from the Second World War." And then, of course, there was a big alarm.
Jörg and Carsten fish with so-called sieve nets. To avoid unnecessary bycatch in the net, there is another close-meshed net in the sieve net. Fish can get out of the net through an exit at the end. This fishing technique is considered particularly sustainable. Now we will see whether this fishing trip was worth it.
That doesn't look bad. Another one?
The fishermen make 3 to 5 attempts per tour. The first one was not bad at all. The freshly caught crabs are first taken to a washing plant. Jörg estimates how much they caught.
A ton. That's just under a ton. We usually have 2 to 3 tons inside, but then everything here cracks. You can really feel the pressure.
While the fishermen catch more crabs, Jörg processes the fresh crabs directly.
Now they get hot feet.
Hopefully, only the crabs.
You can easily get burned. That's even hotter than a tea kettle. That's how hot this is. Now I'm going to turn them all around.
Jörg cooks the crabs in hot seawater. This preserves them and gives them their characteristic curvature.
No, it'll take another minute. I'll boil it again, and then they're ready. We have to boil them twice.
The 40-year-old cutter is exposed to the forces of nature, high stress on the material that can become dangerous.
A wire can break or something. It's happened before. It can be dangerous. Because it is so tight, and there is a crack in it, and then it can tear quickly. If there's a blow, it blows away like that. That's very dangerous. Head off, fingers off. Anything can happen. It's very dangerous. You have to be careful.
At 16, Jörg was on a shrimp boat for the first time. He has known Carsten since childhood. The fisherman is far from being fed up with North Sea crabs. And after all, someone has to try.
Yes, they're good. If there are still white dots, then they are cooked. A little foam on top, and then they come out.
Strictly speaking, North Sea crabs are not crabs at all, but shrimp. This is because crabs are short-tailed. Shrimp, however, belong to the long-tailed crabs. 8-hour days are rare for fishermen. Most of the time they're out for more like 12 to 14 hours.
Yes, the hours, staying awake for a long time. And you have to be seaworthy. The smell, some can't stand the smell of the crabs when they're cooked. It's not for everyone. I've seen it. When it shakes, you can burn yourself.
After 15 minutes, the crabs are ready.
There they are.
So far, however, the crabbers don't have enough catch.
They are delicious.
Only when the next haul also turns out rich, today's trip was worth it. In Norderstedt in Schleswig-Holstein, radio mast technician Andreas Arnold doesn't yet know whether he will bring his job to a successful end.
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Jürgen Böhme always keeps an eye on his climbing colleague during the ascent. In an emergency, the experienced technician knows exactly what to do.
We have to take first aid courses regularly, and we have to undergo a G41 examination, which is an altitude fitness examination that's repeated every 3, 2 or 1 year, depending on your age. You're tested for physical fitness, stress, ECG, blood values, everything that goes with it. These are the requirements to be allowed to climb at all.
Even when things have to go quickly, Andreas never gets hectic. Like his colleague Jürgen, he has been doing the job for more than 20 years. His own safety always comes first. Once at the top, the mobile communications technician always remains connected to the mast.
I'm now securing myself here on this grab rail so that I can get closer to the work area. We are never unsecured. No step unsecured on the mast.
Kein Schritt ungesichert auf dem Mast.
Then it can start. Jürgen has witnessed the summit attempt of his colleague.
So,
Jürgen?
Did you arrive well up there?
Yes?
Fine, you're secured. I now go into the container and prepare the measurement for the RG8 cable.
First, the two service technicians check whether the cable connecting the high-frequency unit on the mast to the indoor unit is working. Jürgen and Andreas get into position. The service technicians must work together perfectly. Andreas prepares the cable on the mast so that colleague Jürgen can check the cable quality from the ground with a special measuring device.
Andreas,
Yes, Jürgen?
can you hear me like this?
Yeah, hang on. I now have the RG8 cable off.
Yes.
I would put a 50 ohm terminating resistor on it right now.
Fine, wait a sec. I'll prepare the measurement for a moment. I'm going to make a return loss measurement. Switch on the 50 ohms, please.
Jürgen, the terminating resistor is on.
Okay, I'm going to look at that a little bit more closely, Andreas. The cable doesn't look good, or the connector. At the beginning of the frequency range, we're pretty bad with 13 decibels. Please have a look at the plug and see if it's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to take it apart now and then I'll get right back to you, Jürgen.
Okay, all right, I'll keep the meter on. See you soon. Bye.
Tschüss.
These cables can break due to rodent infestation or moisture, but the experienced technicians suspect that the plug is damaged.
Now you can see he's working on the cable. And you can always see that the values change from the open cable. And now he's probably fiddling around with the plug. Then there's a small transition, and you can't exactly evaluate that now.
The technicians were right. It really is the plug that's damaged.
It's like an antenna cable, like the one you know from the TV, only bigger, with a shield on the outside and a so-called core on the inside. And that has to be set off in a certain millimeter range, so that the core of this connector, for example, has to be 5 millimeters long. The dielectric has to be the same length, and the shield has to be the same length. Andreas, how does it look?
Hi, Jürgen. I now took off the plug and mounted a new one.
Wait,
Can you measure again, please?
29 on average. We have 2 peaks in here, but that's not the cable. 35. The values are good.
Okay, then we'll leave it like that, but I still change the ODU.
Yes, I guess that one has a short circuit.
I think so too.
In Dachau, the elevator installers make their first test run. If everything now runs as desired, the service technicians can also replace the upper sliding shoes with rollers.
Good. Slowly down, please.
Klaus Pauker wants to take a closer look at the installed rollers.
The most important thing is always the noise, whether something brushes, a metallic noise. And then we just look whether something is visible somewhere. It's better if you don't see anything, because then it usually fits.
Klaus looks at the newly installed rollers one last time. He must be able to trust his colleague, because he has to stop the elevator in time.
Good, stop. Well, you can see here now, for example, we have changed the rolls on the elevator. Everything looks good now. Good, we can drive up again.
So far, the conversion has worked well. The elevator fitters are finished under the cage.
Good, fits.
Lift boy Mladen frees his colleague.
Now we're doing service work upstairs. We can clean everything up.
Klaus is satisfied. If they make just as much progress on the cage, they will soon be finished. He's not afraid in this elevator shaft.
The green area, for example, is the personal protection area. I can bend over there and nothing can happen to me. The elevator drives up to here max. With the new elevators, it's a bit different. There we have much less space in the shaft pit and at the top of the shaft, so it's more dangerous. Of course, things happen from time to time, but not yet for me personally.
There are other tools in the shaft that are designed to make everyday life safer. Emergency stop or alarm button are just two of them. Klaus Pauker knows that recklessness still leads to accidents.
The fitter was squeezed between the ceiling and the cage, between the cage ceiling and the shaft ceiling, because in the meantime, everything is being built smaller and the shelters are getting smaller and smaller.
Nothing stands in the way of part 2 of the rebuild. Mladen took it during his preparations.
Upstairs is more pleasant. We have a little more space.
The fitter now has to climb the stairs to do this. Klaus and Mladen are used to that. When they are on the job, the elevator is usually at a standstill. Securing the construction site is a matter of course for Mladen.
If someone comes in, because this is an office building, so people are walking around. And here you have to work with open doors. I don't want someone to read the papers or look at the cell phone, and then he wants to go into the elevator. That's why it's very important to cordon off and secure the area. Do you have everything now? Everything we need is up here now. Normally we should first shut down the elevator, either with emergency stop or inspection switch, and basically it's always tested if it goes up. It doesn't because it's locked. But it must be tested, otherwise you can't start. Leave the doors open.
Klaus and Mladen lose no time. They immediately start removing the remaining sliding shoes and replacing them with smoother rollers. Because the elevator fitter wants to complete this job quickly. But the two don't get far. The right screw is missing. So it's time for Mladen to climb the stairs again.
The question is whether we even have the screw in the car. If we don't have it, then we have to go to the DIY store or the company and get it.
The fitter should actually be able to find the missing screw in his well-stocked toolbox.
No, we have even shorter ones. Unfortunately not. Now you have to look. Does the colleague have it in the car? If not, we have to drive to the company.
On the North Sea, Carsten Norman and colleague Jörg Frerichs are busy with the second haul of the day. So far, the weather gods are merciful and the work is pleasant. If that changes quickly and unexpectedly, it can be dangerous.
We had that once. We were out and both of us wanted to sail home. And there came this huge wave from the side and the whole ship went to lie on its side. I thought that was it. And I was standing there, just there. It was black. He thought I wasn't there anymore. The lines from the pot, all the drums, the legs broke, everything broke. Such a blast was on deck here. He was holding a teacup and it simply blew apart. What a wave! And since then, we're both really scared of it.
Before the fishermen haul in the nets for the second time, they sort out mussels and small crabs. They have been on the water for a good 3 hours today. Then it's time to reel in the nets. Jörg immediately sees how this catch turned out.
Not much again.
With a special notch, the crabber can open the net quickly and easily, without much fiddling. He's not at all satisfied.
Nope, that's not enough right now.
The first time the yield was much better.
Man. Wait! If you have a hole in it and you think you'll have something in the next hole, then you're satisfied. But if it's so little, then the mood goes down a bit.
Jörg sorts out the bycatch and removes the dirt from the hole so that nothing goes into the drum. The two crabbers want to make another attempt. Carsten sails to another spot where he wants to try again.
Yeah, we have also caught good here at this time. If there's been a storm or something, then everything's pretty churned up, and then it can be better.
At least since the 17th century, crabs have been fished with nets in the North Sea, a profession with ancient traditions that Carsten and many other fishermen are happy to carry on.
Yep, I have a crab as an earring. It's a tradition from old seafaring. If someone went overboard and died and was washed ashore again, then the funeral could be paid with his earring. That was the custom in the past. Today it wouldn't pay for a funeral, but in the past the gold was worth even more. And real gold and the funeral was not so expensive. Anyway, that was the custom.
By now, the sea is getting rougher. For the last time this day, Jörg gets the nets on board and examines the catch. The conclusion is clear.
A little better, but still too little.
The fisherman had imagined it differently. Economically, fishing is getting tougher and tougher. Carsten Norman remembers other times. He's a fourth-generation shrimper.
Someone always had to do with fishery in Norddijk, either as crabbers or craft businesses that repaired the crab cutters. Always something with fishery, and that has become less and less.
A poor catch is not unusual at this time of year. In 3 to 4 weeks, things should be better again, the fishermen hope. Jörg has another explanation.
Could have gone a little better, but we can't see what's going on out here. Sometimes you catch well, sometimes nothing. That's the North Sea. Some things you get, others you don't. We'll have to do it next time. But we have to have a different wind. We have to have a little inland wind. That's better. With north wind, the water is so clear. You can look, it must be completely brown, and then you catch properly. But life goes on.
The crabbers won't let it get them down. They want to fish again at night in the dark.
They are hungry.
Days like this are part of the job. For Carsten Norman, however, it remains the job he loves and wants to do. A profession that is also inextricably linked to his homeland for him.
We have the sailor's pension. We can already stop with 58, I think. I turned 50 this year, so I have to manage another 8 years. But of course it's sad to see where it's going. There's not much new blood. The crab cutters in Norddijk are becoming fewer and fewer. So yes, the profession is slowly dying out here on the coast. That is a great pity.
Carsten and Jörg have had enough for today and return to the harbour. The yield, mediocre. But tonight they're heading out to the North Sea again, on the hunt for golden crabs. In Dachau, the end of the day is not yet in sight. Elevator installer Mladen Tokic works on the conversion of a passenger elevator. In the process, he was thwarted by a missing screw. Colleague Klaus Pauker is the knight in shining armor. He has found the right part in his car.
The screws are here, the right size too. But there are millions of different screws, so it's not always so easy to find the right one.
With the new rolls, the work goes quickly. The oldest records of elevator installations date back to antiquity. In 236 before Christ, Archimedes is said to have built himself an elevator. Now it's time for Mladen and Klaus to get down to the nitty-gritty.
It has to go further in there. We have to align it because it's crooked a little. That's not a problem. It's just a bit difficult to get there right now. Now I'll quickly remove the roller, then we'll get there better.
Klaus was an electrical machine builder before becoming an elevator fitter. After the conversion, the elevator must be returned to the same position as before, with millimeter precision. If the fitters don't work with absolute precision, the door will no longer close flush. In the worst case, the lift would lock during operation. Klaus measures one last time.
According to measurement, it fits, but checking is always better. We have a few millimeters of deviation, but that's why we first check whether it fits. If not, then you can always readjust a bit. The practice is often different than the theory.
Time for another test drive. This time Mladen rides the elevator and Klaus stays outside.
Now I need to release the door again with the switch, safety on switch.
Okay. Ja.
Mladen operates the elevator via maintenance control.
Now we are flush to the floor. Now comes the command from control, and the colleague presses there that the door's open. The door controller then is automatically locked.
Mladen looks at how the new rollers work.
I always check while driving whether the rollers make a noise and so on. Now we're at the top.
The elevator purrs like a kitten. Neither the doors nor the new rollers give cause for concern. Along the way, the elevator installer takes a look at all the other safety-relevant parts. Rails, ropes, emergency systems. Here, too, there is absolutely no reason for complaint. After a few minutes, Mladen finishes his test drive. Successful. However, the fitters are still not quite finished.
Let's plug in the readout device now. I would say that the test drives were successful. Let's take a look at the error memory.
No mistakes. A good day for Klaus Pauker and Mladen Tokic.
A nice feeling. It's always good when everything worked and no one was hurt.
This elevator runs again, and more smoothly than before. Back in Norderstedt near Hamburg, mobile communications technician Andreas Arnold replaces a radio frequency unit at a height of 40 meters. Originally, Andreas learned to be a communications equipment mechanic and radio electronics technician. It was only later that he shifted his job to radio masts, an enormous change.
Until then, I'd never had anything to do with working at heights. And then you get a training course, and on this training course you are introduced to this height for the first time. And that was very exciting. But in the meantime, you get used to heights. And then at some point it becomes normal. But you mustn't become careless because of this normality. You always have to secure yourself. Your life depends on it. These are just high exposed workplaces, and if you fall down here, you won't survive.
After just a few minutes, Andreas has replaced the part. If everything is working again, the technician can prepare for his descent. Colleague Jürgen Böhme has to check on the ground whether the fault has really been rectified.
Hello, Andreas.
I'm done with the work up here.
Yes, the link is stable. The LTE is on air, and the GSM is also on air. Directional radio also looks good. The LX level fits and is stable.
So Andreas Arnold is finished at the top. Even if it's time to call it a day, there's no reason to get careless on the last few meters. Andreas and Jürgen have become accustomed to working at lofty heights. Nevertheless, if you don't feel well, let your colleagues go first. Otherwise, it can quickly become dangerous.
A colleague was with us who hadn't yet climbed so high, and we were at a very exposed location, a chimney. There was only the ladder and then the wall of the chimney, and between 60 and 120 meters of ladder, and at 90 to 100 meters, I noticed the colleague no longer wanted to move. We then say he froze on the ladder. Of course, if you know your colleague well, you have to either talk him into it or just tease him, depending on how well you know him, so that you can solve the problem. Because if he clings and doesn't want to get down, you'd have to try to save him, which he doesn't want to do either. That's a dicey situation. But by taking a break and having a conversation, it worked out. Then we moved on and the problem was solved. And nothing more happened after that. Thank God.
Today, everything works without any special incidents. The weather has also held up. Sticky heat instead of rain and thunderstorms.
Welcome to the Earth.
Thank you. That worked out well. Wonderful.
Das hat ja gut geklappt.
256.
Super.
Besser geht's nicht.
Full range.
Perfekt, Jürgen.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Now we've earned ourselves a coffee.
Andreas is satisfied. He can finally get out of the hot suit again. Jürgen looks at the performance data one last time.
It's exhausting, especially in this weather. High humidity, high temperatures. But we're happy because the radio link is up and running again, and the customers are back on air. They can make phone calls again. The work is done.
Arbeit ist geschafft.
Does colleague Jürgen see it the same way?
Looks good.
Closing time. The two radio tower technicians have done it again. The disruption has been eliminated. Thousands of customers can surf and make phone calls again, and in the worst case, make emergency calls, thanks to Jürgen Böhme and Andreas Arnold.